Zero.
I feel like we opened this like a long time ago.
Look, we've been doing almost we're almost up to show 200, okay? Who remembers at this point?
I don't even remember because I'm taking a guess. But what's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Brady's Peach Tea. For those who are counting, 172. Yes, welcome. Yes. Off to the heads will roll. This is the ending credit song for Agatha All Along this week. Thanks for joining us this evening. As always, for joining us on the Facebook live stream, for joining us on YouTube, or wherever you find audio and podcasts. We always appreciate the support. I'm Ed, and with me as always is Jason. Jason, what's up, dude? How you doing, man?
How's it going? Good to be here. Excited to talk about Agatha. Especially excited to talk about Penguin tonight. It's going to be a great show. I do though want to take this moment though. It's a somber moment because we lost a huge sports figure this week, Dikembe Mutombo. So big that I am not even a fan of sports, and I know who this man is. And he was really early, really young. It was terrible. And so someone who have no idea about sports except I got through osmosis through these guys in high school, who watched it. I was shaken by that when I heard that. So I just want to say RIP, no bit, Dikembe Mutombo. Rest in peace. You were a legend.
This was actually, dude, this was a crazy week for, I guess we'll take a minute to discuss this. There was a couple of things, like famous people passed away in like the last 72 hours or something like that.
Crazy.
It was quite a bit.
And then John Amos from Good Times and Coming to America, as we would know him most from McDowell's.
Yep.
Apparently he passed in August, and they just released that statement. So it was a lot of
shit. I didn't read that part of it.
Yeah, I believe. Maybe I was wrong because I was, I read things pretty quickly because I'm, I might as well be a Xennial at this point with the way I use my phone. But but I believe I had read that it wasn't recent. Like they'd kind of been sitting on that because of whatever. That was a loss, man. McDowell.
Yeah, John Amos. There was Chris Christopherson, who does go right into ours, who was Whistler in the Blade trilogy. There was that. Also, Pete Rose passed away, speaking of sports, also.
This is true, and that's another guy I know, ironically, not from anything he did in baseball, but from what got him banned from the Hall of Fame. I think it's a lifetime ban.
Wow, His lifetime is over. Mind. You're reading my mind.
The man, from what I understand, again, through osmosis, was a hell of a player.
Yes.
The punishment was to never see himself in the Hall of Fame. Let the man in now.
Wow, Jason, honestly, I'm going to tell the truth. Kudos to you because you really took the words right out of my freaking mouth. And this is not unsportsmanlike conduct. Yes, this is great.
It isn't. This is coming from...
It's not from me. It's from
me
you.
Who knows nothing about sports. Yeah.
That is awesome. That is absolutely awesome. Yeah, no. A lot of figures. And yeah, you're right about Pete Rose. I echo all of that. It's a lifetime ban. He should be definitely in next year's class. Because again, he served his ban, so why not?
You punished him. Yeah, it was not to erase his name from the annals and history of, the sports for people, because people are going to remember Pete Rose anyway.
Of course,
he's still in the history book, so just give him his due now that he's gone.
He's also in the WWE Hall of Fame.
Is Pete Rose in the?
Yes, because he showed up at 3 straight WrestleManias and got choke slammed by Kane every year. And tombstone by Kane every year. And they just threw him in.
You know what? I'm very happy for that because I like to think that when he was inducted, Pete Rose closed his eyes and just pretended for a moment it was the Baseball Hall of Fame, and he was able to, for one fleeting moment, know how it felt.
Yes, and it'll dude. Wow, it really does all tie in because I started watching Mr. McMahon, that Netflix docu series. I watched the first episode. I definitely want to knock it out.
My family's going. My wife and my son are going away in a couple weeks, like for the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I'm going to get into that because I really am excited to see it. So I'm waiting for them to watch it. So is the first episode, is it really good?
Yeah, I liked it. It definitely has me intrigued. If I didn't have to actually leave the house, I was going to keep going.
Yeah,
I'm not a binge guy, so for me to want to keep going, and I was like,
that's
all right,
that's huge.
Yeah. So wow, that really all did tie in together nicely.
See, we've been doing this a while. We got a rapport, a rhythm, and I just want to say, I purposely didn't tell Ed I was going to make this Dikembe Mutombo tribute because I wanted to see his reaction because I'm the last person in the world who should be making it, and Ed still it all came back beautifully right to where we needed it to.
Yeah, it did. Wow, that's awesome. We don't need prep for this shit. We just watch the stuff and that's it. It just comes together.
Just comes naturally at this point. 172 episodes we've been at this, and I've only missed one.
Yes, we've both only missed one because remember I was out one episode also. The Superman Returns episode. I was sick that day.
That's true. Oh, I forgot about that. So that's right. So we are tied for the episodes we've been on, which is all but one.
Yes. Speaking of longtime Granny's PhD guys, Alex is back too. What's up? The OG background goes nice. Yeah, we definitely like to bring it back every so often, especially for like a week like this week when we just kind of have like two shows, and we like to rotate them there. So, all right.
Al, you've been watching The Penguin, Al? I'm curious. Put us in the chat because I know that you're a big Batman fan. So I'm curious in the chat what you think about The Penguin, so we can bring it out when we talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, let's jump into our first show of the evening, and we'll drop the spoiler warning, even though the new episode drops tomorrow. Agatha All Along, episode 3. Last week was the 2-episode season or series premiere. We'll see how it goes with that. It depends if it gets to season 2 or not. But yeah, I guess quick overall thoughts before we get into the minutia of the episode. I thought it was okay. This is out of the 3 episodes, this is my least favorite. I'm not saying like it was bad or horrible, but I don't know. It was okay, I thought. What did you think?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I actually did enjoy it.
Okay.
I realized that, and then look, just to show you how quickly I watched the last 2, and because I was really frantically trying to get everything together to do both shows last week, I missed that Patti LuPone is in this, and I love Patti LuPone. So I was taking that in this episode and really appreciating her performance. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed this. I did enjoy this. I thought there was interesting character work with Agatha. I actually like her character less after this, and that means I like Catherine Hahn as an actress more, because that is, this episode was kind of designed for that. Yeah, so I think I enjoyed it more than you did, to be honest.
Yeah, and again, I want to preface this with saying I'm not trying to like sugarcoat it. Like, I think I watched it. I liked it more the second time around because as anyone who follows knows, I like to watch the shows one time through just for like a fan, completely a fandom and not taking notes and shit like that. And then I always try to make sure I watch it like right before we go on, just so I can do my notes and get into some details and things like that. So, yeah, I did enjoy it more the second time around, but I kind of just felt like the first episode I really dug it. It hooked me in because I really enjoyed the return back to the TV stuff, and it was the cop procedural and stuff, and like the whole thing with her overacting as a cop. I just be cracking up the whole episode. And I don't know. And then episode 2 just kind of like meeting the coven and stuff like that. And this one was kind of like, all right, they're going to start walking the road and stuff like that. So, there is that. But like I said, I don't know. It's again not knocking it at all, but it was it. Oh, actually, Alex has a quick comment here too we can get to. Is Matt Reeves making it? I'll be sure to check it out. I heard it takes place. Oh wow, so you have not started the Penguin.
Okay.
Yeah, Matt Reeves
Text
is a
me
producer.
when you start it.
Yeah, Matt Reeves is a producer. He's not directing every episode like that, but you could tell he's heavily involved because the Penguin absolutely feels like it is 100% connected and taking place in the universe of Matt Reeves' Batman universe. So you wouldn't even be able to tell that he hasn't directed it. To be honest with you, and I kind of feel this is essential viewing for that universe. I can't imagine it wouldn't be.
I mean, it's also really good, so I think you'd like.
Yeah, it's also excellent, by the way. Yeah, on top of that, it's
Yeah.
just an excellent show. But yeah, we'll get back to that in a little bit. So, all right. Then I guess let's get into the details. And so, basically, this episode picks up where they're walking the road, you know, the witch's road here, and that's where we left them off in episode 2. And basically, the coven has to go through these trials that we find out, and there are different tests for each part of the coven because each one of them is like a specialist, you know, potion specialist and things like that. And that's who we get tested in this one. So I'm assuming over the next 4 to 5 episodes, each one is going to be a different trial because this episode focuses on the trial at hand that's here. Okay, so the first trial basically includes they walk the road and we find out that the road actually changes itself to the desires of and I guess of the old molds itself to the coven that's walking the road of the witches at all. And this one kind of takes place in this like I guess Real Housewives type scenario or something like that. I guess if you want, it's like this house there and they're all kind of dressed completely differently and they're like, you know, it's like got a little bougie and things like that. And we kind of get that type of a setting there. And there is a wine that is brought upon them to drink, and they find out that it's a poison wine. And there's different things that they have to go through.
And I love that moment where they go, well, I mean, should we drink it? I mean, it's probably poisoned. And Agatha's like, well, what else are we going to do? We got to start the trial. Like, so I appreciated that because it's like they weren't stupid except for like maybe Kitty, you know, because I think she went right for it. But she's also not a witch. But the thing, none of them are stupid. They all drink it knowing it's poisoned. And I thought that was a fun twist, a fun, clever thing on like an old trope.
Yeah. And they all start drinking the wine and stuff like that. And suddenly it starts with Mrs. Hart, where she kind of gets this like, they look like they got these crazy Botox injections and stuff like that. And their face is swollen up and everything. Fun. Yeah, I thought that was pretty fun. And then you notice Agatha's the only one who didn't do it because she dumped the wine. Because she's just still kind of like finagling her way around this, right? She's trying to still take her shortcuts. She really doesn't give a shit about them still.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's important with both of the shows. Oh,
go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I think both of the shows, like we did kind of mention last week, we're covering 2 shows right now that are about villains. One in the MCU and then one in not the DCU, but Matt Reeves' Batman universe. So, but what I kind of like the fact that so far they're not turning these villains into anti-heroes or something like that. Like, they're still not good people, like by any stretch of the imagination. They're still assholes.
Absolutely, and that actually is really informs what I was going to say, because this episode made me like, and this moment made me like Agatha less as a character because she's a villain. But, you know, that's, of course, the point, right? Like, she doesn't drink the drink. She's waiting to see what everyone else does. And when things look like they're going wrong, she tries to provoke them into attacking her. And remember, Agatha can steal your witchcraft power if you use it on her. And so she's clearly like, all right, fine. And she's trying to provoke them. And like watching her do that and be so manipulative to the coven, quote unquote, made me kind of go, oh man, I really don't like her. But great kudos to Catherine Hahn, who really brings that quality to, like, there's a likable unlikableness to her.
Yes, which is kind of without jumping ahead, but just briefly touching on it, which is kind of how I feel about Oz Cobb also at the moment.
100%. 100%. Yep.
So it is interesting that we're getting them at the same time, though.
It really is, and I'm curious if this was purposeful or just accidental, because there are parallels. Because again, when we talk about, Penguin, I'm probably going to say the same thing. I like him a bit less as a character, but god damn, does Colin Farrell deserve some award for this, because he's really killing it.
No, he really is. All right, so while this is all going on, there's this clock that's ticking. And basically, like, they do cut to a couple of times throughout the episode. And they kind of have to get through this whole trial as that's going. So a lot of it mainly focuses on Jennifer Kale, right? Who is the character that says she's like the potions person that we met in the second episode, who was doing all this, skincare and beauty care and things like that. And Agatha at one point, even in this episode, even calls her out to be kind of a hack a little bit with that part of it, but also comes around saying that when it matters most, that what she was doing is important. Now, a little bit of background on Jennifer Kale, at least comic wise, I did want to drop in there. So in Marvel Comics lore, Jennifer Kale is also a powerful sorceress, an ally of Man-Thing and other supernatural heroes. However, Jen is also the descendant of Noble Kale, a 17th century Puritan man named Noble Kale, who is also a corrupt pastor, whose father sold his soul to somebody who's name dropped in this episode by Jennifer Kale specifically.
Yep. That name was dropped, and I was watching it, and I went, "What did Ed think? What did Ed think? What is his reaction?"
She name drops Mephisto. Finally, so Mephisto's name at least is officially in the MCU, and yes, harkening once again back to the days of WandaVision when we were all speculating about Mephisto and all this other stuff. It's very, very casually dropped, right? Because at the moment she name drops him, she is talking to Teen and starts telling the story.
You mean Blackheart? You mean Blackheart? Because that's what I'm convinced it is now.
Oh, so we have adjusted our thoughts here on this. Okay.
After this episode, remember we were talking about it. I was on the fence. We were talking about after this episode. No doubt in my mind that he is Blackheart, or they are intentionally trying to lead us to think he is for the bait and switch at the end. But they've definitely laid the groundwork. And I don't want to jump ahead, but there are things that happen in this episode that, for me, after the Mephisto name drop and them calling out the Blackheart in episode 2, and some things that we learned about Agatha in this episode, I was like, it's got to be.
All right, so let's get to some of the things, because Jennifer is telling Teen about Agatha, basically saying, don't trust her. You want to know what she did. She ended up trading in her son for the Darkhold. Okay, that was basically an exchange that she had done, and starts to speculate whether people don't know if her son is dead or if he's an agent of Mephisto, and that's where the actual name drop comes into play here. So that's what we get, and throughout the episode too, there's after they drink this wine, they go through these hallucinations, and things start happening to everybody and stuff, and they're seeing all this shit. And one of the things that Agatha sees is she hears a baby crying, and in that little, cradle, if you want to say, or something like that, she uncovers it, and it's the Darkhold, is the baby, signifying what Jennifer said is true. That's exactly what she did.
Yeah.
And that's part of her kind of some guilt we get throughout this episode with Agatha. I guess there's a couple of moments where there's definitely some guilt there that lies in as this whole thing is playing out.
I'm gonna posit. I'm gonna be crazy theory guy this time around.
Okay.
I'm gonna posit another theory. Yes, she trades her son Blackheart for the Darkhold, but it is to protect him, because she was trying to protect him from herself and his father, which which I think came from because it's Mephisto, right? Came from a pact even or whatever. You're going to find out. And I think we're going to find out she's the one who put the spell on him and used the power of the Darkhold to shield him and protect him.
Wow.
And I think she's starting to realize it, because there's a moment when, if you remember, the way they get her to drink is the teen says, all right, I'll be part of the coven. I'll do it. And she jumps to attention, grabs it, and she says, no, stops and goes, oh, you're underage. This Agatha would give a shit about that?
That's true. That's true. That's a good point right there. Interesting. So now you're off Billy Maximoff.
I am. Yeah. Okay. Look, both, I think in the first two, either one could have been. I was kind of down the middle. Now after this, they're laying too much. If it is Billy Maximoff, they need to start laying that soon, because they have laid the Black Heart foundation. I mean, because let's face it, we know that Black Heart from the second episode is not. It has nothing to do with Kitty from that 70s show. Yes, her name was Miss Hart on the show that Wanda put her on, as she reminded us, but she's not a witch. And by the end of this episode, it's kind of proven she doesn't have what it takes to walk the road. So I don't think it ever was her. But since they're on the road, it has to be him.
Her name is Sharon by the end of this, and actually even Agatha doesn't even kind of give a shit what her name is. Actually, her actual name is at that point.
Right.
One other quick thing I wanted. No, it is terrible. Which it's true. This episode does reinforce Agatha as a villain on a few things. But I wanted to mention one quick thing too regarding Noble Kale, which is Jennifer Kale's father. Who had mentioned who sold his soul, who's a corrupt pastor who sold his soul to Mephisto. Now, Noble also contained part of the Medallion of Power, which housed the power of the Spirits of Vengeance, which Mephisto activated, transforming Noble into the Ghost Rider of his era. Noble ended his service being trapped in the void to be bound to the firstborn child of his generation of his family. That binding lasted all the way up to Danny Ketch, Ghost Rider, who is one of Noble Kale's descendants as well. So there was a pretty kind of deep cut Ghost Rider Easter egg in this episode. And again, I know Rick is watching right now, so not to get him all hopping on that he's scraping at the door for Ghost Rider to appear in the MCU.
Does here it is. Here it is.
Yeah, I'm going to drop it in his comments for you.
But does that mean that this Kale guy was the iteration of Sam Elliott? Was he the old West cowboy guy? I would like to think that. I'd like to think that he is Sam Elliott.
Interesting. I guess so, right? I mean, I don't know.
Because isn't that what Sam Elliott is? The spirit of the Ghost Rider of his time,
he's supposed to guide. Yeah. Johnny Blaze in Nick Cage ones. Interesting.
Scraping at the door. That movie was batshit crazy.
Speaking of batshit crazy, let's get to Rick's comments here that he has dropped. Let's not forget who on a text on our text last week said Mephisto being involved makes this series important. I'm still going to say that's not why the series is important. I'm still going to say that I think it's important because the character of Agatha is either going to gain her power back and play a role in the MCU at some point down the line, or, in future installments, or the resurrection of Wanda Maximoff is part of how this plays out. If you want to go with the train of thought that Billy Maximoff is Teen, and Teen is trying to resurrect his mother. So I guess right now we are full on speculating and guessing, and it's got us jumping all over the place. We are really back to WandaVision now.
We're back to WandaVision. All right, now, all right. I took the Mephisto role. Who is taking up the Mojo role? Who's going to come up with some Mojo theories for me?
Man, that's going to be. You're going to have to give me a couple more episodes to jump on that one, then.
That's fair. Rick, I don't think I started that till halfway through the series anyway.
True. So we're almost there. I also called for Ghost Rider, and you judged me. I still feel very confident we're not going to see Ghost Rider at any point during Agatha all along. But hey, who knows? There could be crazier things that happen. But I still feel confident. What we just named
And
was a very deep cut Ghost Rider Easter egg.
And also, I mean, it is canon as much as it's not necessarily MCU with a capital MCU, but we did get the Johnny Reyes Ghost Rider in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is canon for the MCU, so I don't know. So we certainly wouldn't get that one, and I don't think they would give us Johnny Blaze in this. Like, I think if we're going to get a Ghost Rider, I don't think it's going to be through an Agatha backdoor. I don't think it's going to be an Agatha backdoor spinoff. I think that's like a movie, right? That's like something that you premiere.
Yeah, I think that would be a Ghost Rider series per se, but there's also that whole weird thing with Kevin Feige of being non-committal of making Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. canon or not. You know,
yeah, but
it's weird.
I mean, yes, but I mean, here's the thing. Nick Fury and Coulson make that fucking thing canon. That's it. Like,
for me
those
too.
Are the same actors playing the same characters. It's canon. You can say that they put them in an alternate reality so these characters could be different, but you have to do something to differentiate because it's canon.
I'm with you 100%. Regarding, and not to veer off on this whole Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. thing, but
no.
Agent Coulson's there. Nick Fury shows up. Maria Hill shows up.
Great.
They follow up on the events of the MCU on numerous occasions of Winter Soldier and Thor: The Dark World and things of that nature. Lady Sif shows up on that show. Yeah. To me, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is 100% canon.
100%.
Yes, Coulson and Thor. Coulson's in multiple Iron Man movies. Like he's all over the place.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's in every Phase 1 movie, right? Like until he dies, and that's when he starts the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. movie, television show. So they kill his character in the MCU so they can spin it off to a television show starring his character with other characters from the MCU. How is it not canon?
Yeah, it's weird. So then, with that train of thought, Ghost Rider's been around. It's Reyes, but it's still, and there's also mentions of Johnny Blaze and Danny Ketch in that show. So yeah, Ghost Rider's been around, and to me it's canon. So, well, I will say though, again, last Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. thing, so we can get back to Agatha all along, is they ended up time traveling and doing all this other shit. So a lot of their stuff didn't even take place in the sacred timeline, if you want to call it that anyway. So it doesn't matter.
That's actually kind of when I tapped out, when they went into the future, into the Kree, and the Krees took over the Earth. I watched that, and they got back, and I was like, I'm good. This is where the show ends for me.
You know something, man? I liked Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I watched it from beginning to end. I enjoyed it.
I do too. Yeah. I do too. I'm just saying, like, it's not. I didn't say it was bad. It just got to a point. Some shows get to a point where they are not recognizable enough to me from when they started, and I start to go, okay, it's not really for me anymore. So I think that's what happened. Because anyway, this is an Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. podcast. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that we started a little bit after that, but no, I still enjoyed it. It does have its like niche fan base and stuff like that. Because remember that came out during the time when there were no shows, there were no MCU shows, so that was all we had.
It's a great show, and I think, look, all right, real quick, what I'm so like angry over about that show and why it's such a grade for me is a decision they did that I respect the hell out of, and that's they made that one good guy who I really liked into the fucking super villain, and then he pretty much becomes like a parasite character. And they never walked that back, and I missed his they never really, for me, adequately replaced his presence in the show, and so I think that's what hurt it for me.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I liked him too.
Yeah. He's great. Yeah, he was. But his heel turn and never walking it back, I thought was such a brilliant move, and it's what made me love the show, like beyond like when I first started watching it.
Yeah. Also, you know something, it gives them an excuse to bring Quake back at any point. I'm good with that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love that actress who plays Quake. And yes, I actually remember that when they go to the Matrix with the Darkhold, and that's another thing. By the way, the Darkhold was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yes, the Darkhold was involved in Agents of Shield. That's how we get
Yeah,
Ghost Rider eventually in that.
Exactly. So to bring it back to Agatha all along, it's clearly they are connected because the Darkhold is here. Ed, take us away.
That is a nice way to bring it back in. So, yeah, they go through these hallucinations and stuff like that, and they're all seeing like they don't really. Some of it's somewhat nondescript, but even like Jennifer goes through this one dude who says that you're an inconvenient woman. Is like trying to start drowning her fucking head in this like sink. It gets crazy, and there's like some zombie action going on at one point in here too. It's some pretty wild stuff. And then the other witch, she sees her mother, who is like that's who her whole thing is. So it is
and
really interesting.
And you get a little taste of that before too, when the teen asks about her tattoo, and she's like, "Yeah, my mother wanted me to get it." And you get that kind of little, and I think actually that kind of then we get this scene with her mother and they're playing or something. But like, I like that they kind of set the seeds for that, and clearly these are things that are going to come back, right? I mean, if they don't, I'll be upset. So these are things that need to come back throughout the series.
Yeah, no, I think we're going to get a lot of that. Each character's like whole backstory, I'm sure they'll dive into more as their part of the trials come on, which is what I'm going to guess is how this is going to play out. So once the potion is made, Jennifer makes it in this sink, and she kind of like uses it as like a cauldron in a way, and then they have the antidote, so they go ahead and they all drink it. They all start coming back little by little, but then the house that they're in is underwater and starts like leaking and springing water, and they have to go through this oven to get out of there, and they one by one go. But then, as you had mentioned, Sharon or Mrs. Hart, she doesn't quite recover from it. Kitty from that 70s show. They kind of have to like escort her through, like they have to like, get her through this oven, and they basically all escape. And then we find out that she's dead. Do you think she's really dead?
Yeah.
You think this is it?
I don't. I mean, normally I'd say no one's dead except for Bruce Wayne's parents and Uncle Ben. But this isn't like a superhero, or I mean, this is not someone I know. She could very well be dead. I would hate to see Deborah Jo Rupp out of this show because I love that actress, and just want to make sure you guys know I know her name, because I've not been condescendingly calling her Kitty. I just love her in that 70s show.
She's great.
She's fantastic, and she's great in this. She's great comic relief, like when she's drinking and she's the first to like she's getting smashed, and she's just so funny. And someone does actually say, "Here, Kitty," like to her. Yes. Someone does say Kitty. Yeah. But yeah, so I don't know. She very well could be dead, but I think if we do see this character again, it's a possibility that the road is manipulating her. Like I think that might be, if we see her again, that's where she comes.
Okay. My guess is I think she is actually dead. In this. That's my guess. Now, she or this form that has been taken could be dead, because I think before we wrap up this segment, let's reassess where we're at right now with our speculation right now, because we have definitely shifted from episodes 1 and 2 to week 3. All right. So to recap,
things changed.
Jason, you are on now that teen is Blackheart, Mephisto's son.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And I think what we're gonna find out is that Agatha, at some point in her very, very long life, probably to help like her coven or something, even though she has this terrible thing. I'm going deep prediction here.
Oh, I know. I'm waiting for this. I think I know where you're going.
She sold her soul to bear Mephisto's child.
Oh my God, there it is.
And she didn't so much give him back and trade him for the Darkhold as use him to get the Darkhold to protect him. And so I think we're going to find out that Tien is her and Mephisto's child from a pact that she made with Mephisto back in the heyday. That is my theory.
So are you also alluding that Mephisto and Agatha Harkness
got it on?
We're bringing it all back.
I mean, I don't know
We're bringing it all back, baby.
Bring it all back. I mean, I don't know how devil pacts work when it comes to bearing the fruit of Satan. Like, I don't know if Satan if you have to have the sex, or if it's like you get like impregnated from afar. I don't know how that works.
Well, we've both seen some possession movies, so I guess usually it's not actual sex with the devil. It's usually some sort of
right.
I don't know. What's the word I'm looking for? Immaculate conception type thing.
Right, and that's what I was thinking. Like, did he just? I don't know. Maybe they didn't get it on, but it was a hell of a lot of fun to bring it back on this episode.
Yes, I mean you were teed up for it. All right,
appreciate the setup.
So I'm gonna still stick with Billy Maximoff. I'm gonna still stick to my guns here a little bit longer, but I do think you make very solid points though throughout this episode that it seems like maybe Agatha does have a further relationship with Tien that she's not fully disclosing here.
Yeah. And there are a couple things like she does what's an important part here is the coven find out that he has that spell on him, and it does actually confirm what I said last week that that wasn't for the audience, that witches, it's apparently a protection spell that makes witches not be able to hear his identity or backstory. And when they find out and they're like, oh, we got to find out what, who did this. Agatha's like, well, we'll crack him open later. We got work to do. And then later on, she's kind of protective of him. Like, she's always very protective of, not always, but she has been very protective of him this episode. And even last episode, I pointed it out. I think, again, they at least want us to think this.
Yeah, no, the fact that they got us both, and I'm sure the rest of the audience jumping all around and throwing out all these guesses. I mean, we're definitely invested in, and somebody's wrong, so they definitely got us thinking here. So
for sure,
that is a sign of a good show, though.
Yeah, I'm enjoying this. I know it's getting hate because women, oh my god, a woman of color, oh my god, an Asian woman, oh my god, it's terrible. It's so fucking woke. Women should go back to the kitchen. I don't know, whatever these fucking people think. I personally am enjoying this. I don't think this is the greatest thing the MCU has given us. I think this is a really interesting character study of a villain. I think there's some really good performances, and I'm invested and interested enough to keep watching it because I really want to know if I'm right about this Blackheart business.
Yeah, and overall, I've enjoyed the 3 episodes, and I do like the fact that it is a bit different than what we've gotten before. Like I said before, last week, I enjoyed the character very much on WandaVision, and I like the fact that we're back to some of the speculation and guessing, and not even just this. Like, even if we weren't doing a podcast and covering it, like I would still enjoy this type of thing. Anyway.
Yeah, and the thing is, if we weren't doing a podcast, we'd still be meeting up at points and discussing this stuff. This is how the podcast started.
Oh, exactly. It would probably be over a couple of beers at a bar and stuff.
Right,
and
then, exactly.
But we would still be trying to speculate and guess week to week, which is always a lot of fun. All right, so we will see what happens because episode 4 drops tomorrow. So
all right,
we shall see. All right. So the other show that we have right now coming from Matt Reeves is DC Batman Universe is The Penguin, which drops on Sunday nights on HBO, 9 o'clock actually. It is the HBO show right now and is also on Max, which if you do watch it on Max, as I often do, they do have that little snippet after the credits where they'll dive into the episode a little bit and you get to hear from the writers and producers and stuff and like them reflecting on the episode and stuff, which I find very interesting. So besides for our purposes, just in general. So, Yeah, I guess overall thoughts in the episode. I thought this was another spectacular banger of an episode. I enjoyed the shit out of it again.
I love this show. I love it. I can't sing any more praises than I already have. I've got nothing negative to say. Like I watched this episode and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like the acting and let me tell you what I love about this so much, right? I can't there's no like there's like a nice big action set piece, right? We get a nice action set piece when it comes to, and we'll get to it, but when it comes to like the getting of the drugs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like this whole episode is all about character tension. Like we're gonna go through this. There's not a lot to pin down that happens necessarily plot wise, but my God, the character tension, the character work, the performances, just this Machiavellian sort of like rise of the Penguin. And I'm watching this and I realized I was watching it yesterday because I try to watch this one as close to the show as possible that we do. And I was thinking, I know where this goes. And I'm still this engaged. Like, where does this go? He becomes a crime boss. I've been reading Batman comics my entire life. Clearly, that's where it goes. It doesn't matter. It's not about that. This is one of the few like comic book properties that we've covered that is literally just about the character journey. And I fucking love it so much.
Yeah, and there was also a huge. There's a huge name drop in this episode that I thought of you immediately. That one of, well, actually, I'll save it for a minute before we get to that.
Okay.
And I'm assuming that you got it because I thought it's somewhat blatant, but it's fine. All right. So this episode, like you had mentioned, there's a lot between Sophia and Oz. Right, like yes, that's a lot of this, and again, like the first episodes, was let's see.
I'm not sure, but I will say I do want to say this though, because I think the only reason that we're not lauding the woman Christina Milioti who plays Sophia as like the best actor on the show is because Colin Farrell is killing it so much. So I want to give her some love because I think she is killing it in her role. She's just being overshadowed by the sun.
I'm going to be completely honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I think she does steal some scenes, even from him.
Okay, good.
At times, I'm gonna be honest. I was gonna say that I personally have not seen her in too much before this, but for me, she steals scenes from Colin Farrell, who's doing a phenomenal job. They steal scenes back and forth from each other in both of these episodes, and their chemistry and the tension that goes on between them is spectacular. And also, they're two characters that I personally feel while watching them uneasy around both of them because they're both pretty erratic, and they're erratic around each other. And I also get the feeling Oz is not comfortable around her either.
No, I think she scares him.
Yes.
100%. And what's funny is I'm glad that you drew that parallel because for different reasons, Oz has that effect on other people. Like he scares other people. Like the kid who's driving him around and and doing his errands and stuff. Like it's almost like he makes him feel like he feels around Sophia.
Yeah, like she's the only person that can scare Oz. He's not scared of anyone else here because he's like, even though he's in these fucked up situations and scenarios, and he is a ballsy and
always talks his way out.
Always talks his way out of it, or as we see in this episode, he's willing to do whatever the hell he wants. He has to do to get out of this episode. To get out of these jams. But when she's involved, then all bets are off then.
Which makes where this episode ends, which we'll get to. I'm not going to say, but it makes where this episode ends really exciting.
Yes, and quickly to mention, actually, she was the mother on How I Met.
Yes, she was.
Jason mentioned that last week. I have never watched How I Met Your Mother, so it didn't. It is over my head.
She was also on my favorite, and in my opinion, the best episode of Black Mirror, the USS Callister, I think it's called.
Okay.
About a guy who's a Star Trek fan. There's a lot of toxic masculinity, where he's like, he wants this girl to date him, and she's just not interested. And so, what he does when people piss him off at work because they work together is he takes them their DNA and clones them into a simulation of Star Trek, show in his computer. And for them, they think it's, they think they're real.
Mm-hmm.
And so, she is the girl that we go enter that world through, and she's phenomenal in that as well.
Okay. All right. So speaking of her, the episode starts where she has this therapy session, and she sees her brother. She's in Arkham. She's locked up, and her brother's coming to visit her. And she sees the murder of her brother right in front of her, which is obviously that's how it happened. This is in her mind. And it's very much kind of like Arkham, how we see in the Batman, right? Like two sides of the glass and everything. And there's a shadowy figure that shoots him in the back of the head. And that's how he's murdered. Because that's signifying she doesn't know who actually murdered her brother at this point. But then we find out she's in a therapy session there. And it's kind of like she's being calmed down, and they're doing this whole routine to calm her down. And the therapist even says, you're safe now, you're safe now. Her line at the end of that scene, I thought was great, where she's like, I'm not safe, I'm home.
Yeah. Oh, that cut like a knife. And the way she delivers that.
Yeah.
Oh, that was beautiful. And I'm going to throw a crazy prediction here because I'm in a crazy prediction mood.
Okay.
So based on what I saw of her treatment, it maybe it was calming her down, but it might have been a form of what's called EMDR therapy to treat PTSD and trauma. And because there's something the lights going back and forth.
Looks like Kit.
Right. Exactly. And what that's purpose is to help you get into traumatic memories and process them and unlock them so you don't carry the emotional weight around. So I'm going to posit that maybe, though it wasn't her brother who was killed like that, we're going to find out that there was something that resembles that. That's part of her backstory and why she's so where she is. Because again, I mean, if it is EMDR, that wasn't a hallucination, that was a memory. And even though she's remembering it a bit wrong, it's because, I'm remembering it wrong because I haven't unlocked it yet. I haven't really gotten to the core of it yet. But I think we're going to see some violence happen in a manner like that when she was in Arkham, and that's part of her backstory.
Okay, interesting. I was not aware of that. So, all right, something to keep in mind. All right, so then we catch up with Oz, and Oz is basically visiting Sal Maroni in jail, who's there with his wife and someone else, and he kind of like does this whole we don't Clancy Brown. So then they have this whole thing where he's got the ring, he's parading around Blackgate with the ring on, and Oz is kind of like, listen, you're parading around, you're trophying it there, you've got all the credit for this thing, like just roll with it, just go with it. And Sal's like, listen, I could also just fucking mention this whole thing and sell you out in 2 seconds. So what's to stop me from doing that?
Yeah, but I think it was set up even more brilliant than that, because he comes in, Oz, and Clancy's there with his wife, and I thought that was their kid, but I don't know, maybe I was wrong. But it's definitely someone in the family.
Well, right? He's the guy. I think it's the guy that we see later on. That happens.
You're right. It's the guy they get.
Yeah,
that's right. And so, Clancy Brown is like, you tried to pin that on me, and he's like, yeah, well, you tried to force my hand for this union, right? He's like, yeah, well, I had something, I had to do it, and he's like, well, what's going to stop me from telling them? And he goes, nothing, you could do that, but you have been walking around with that ring on, you have been flaunting it, you have been bragging, and in that moment, I realized this was the plan all along. When he gave him that ring, when he took that ring, his plan was to give it to Clancy Brown, let him walk around with it, and use that as leverage to get him to work with him. And it was so brilliant. I mean, god damn, this Penguin is great.
Yeah, he's gonna be some crime boss when we finally get to him, and Batman has to kind of like deal with him, moving forward.
Because
it's gonna be something.
He's too low for Batman at this point, right? Like, he was only involved in the movie because shit happened at the Iceberg Lounge, but Batman isn't actually, like, he's too low on the totem pole for Batman at this point.
Well, plus also we do find out in this this radio clipping or news clipping and stuff that crime is up 40% in Gotham since the end of the Batman. So I have a feeling he's got his hands full right now and can't be dealing with this shit at the moment.
That's a good point. He is only one Batman.
Yeah, there's own villain on villain crime that's going on. He's trying to stop other shit from going down. So,
you know what? I'm Batman. Forget about the villain on villain crime. I'm not going to go after it.
Yeah, he's got his hands full. He has no Robin. He has no nothing. That's it.
He doesn't. He needs one.
He lays out this whole plan, right? For, he tells Maroni, hey, this is how I'm going to get you. I'll go ahead and I'll exchange this for getting you the shipment. I'm going to be the inside man for that whole transport that we learned about in the first episode, which was the Penguin's operation anyway, or Oz's operation. But he's going to plan to be in the second car. But then it all gets turned upside down when he gets put in the front car.
Yep.
And he can't get out of this. So when the Maronis go in and hijack it and everything like that and go to take that, he's dodging bullets. He's, got to shoot his way out of there. Like, it's a really fucked up situation that he finds his way out of once again.
Yeah, and I want to point out that it's not just shooting his way out of. I mean, yeah, that is the action set piece we talked about. Mm-hmm. But he's not just shooting his way out of, because he's also got to mitigate, because he tells them point blank, I don't care what you do to the truck. I'm not going to be in the truck. Kill them all. Yeah. I don't care. Blow it up. Don't touch the second car. And then he's in this truck, and he can't do anything. And he's already said that. So he now has to mitigate the fact that he is in there with people he is betraying and about to steal from. But people are about to come in and kill everyone in there and don't know he's in there. And it's just also just so in the way he kind of maneuvers around this of like, oh, hey, I'm on your side. Then something happens. Then he turns on them. And then this guy comes in and he's like, hey, no, it's me, Oz. And the driver's like, no, you're a traitor. And then Oz caps him. And it's like, there's just this nuance to how he's doing this.
Yeah.
That I think is just so fun to watch.
And this is kind of just what apparently his thing is, like throughout these first two episodes. So they have like this whole meeting that's, within the Falcone family that's there. Sophia walks in and hears about them trying to like what happened with the shipment and everything like that. And she goes apeshit. She's like, listen, you care about the shipment? How about my brother? Like, his revenge, getting his killers, what's supposed to be first. And it causes Vidi to go ahead and speak up against her. But then the new guy who's in charge over here, he has to basically, Luca, right, Falcone, who's put in charge, he has to kind of like shut that down and shuts Vidi down. And basically doesn't apologize and has to kind of like talk Sophia down a little bit. Like, hey, listen, you're grieving. I get that. But like, we still need to like kind of like handle business at hand here because of what happened. And it is also her brother's services are like the next day. So that's also tensions are going high. Everyone's grieving. He explains that part of it. And she just wants justice. And then after that meeting, as she's walking, Oz sees the opportunity to talk to her and starts playing on her grief a little bit there. Like, I'm on your side. I'm on your side. But once again, she fucking calls him out. Yeah, she sees right through his bullshit.
Yep. Because it's at her brother's funeral. And he's like talking, they don't care. They don't care about him. They didn't know him like us. I loved him. And she looks at him and she goes, I didn't see you at the funeral.
Yeah.
And he goes, and he's lying because we literally the last scene saw him walk up to the church, and he literally goes, "Oh, I was in the back."
Yeah, like again, it's just the quick talking that has to keep on going on with this. But then Oz leaves that meeting, and he's kind of venting to Vic in the street, and they're having this conversation. He's like, "They don't know me. They're both of them. I don't need any of them. They can both go fuck themselves." Like you can start seeing how he's still power hungry and wants to get what's his, right? Like still gets that drive to be the crime boss that we know he wants to be. And I think it's important that they show this because as much as he keeps maneuvering his way out of things, he's still kind of focused on the goal. Like at the end, his end game is what it needs to be. And he kind of lets Vic know about that. And then they kind of have this, he calls Eve and has her working girls and stuff come over to his place, and they have a thing for his little group, stuff like that. But then Eve also kind of calls him out and is like, "Hey, you killed Alberto Falcone. Like,
Yeah,
that wasn't part of the deal." Yeah, like she kind of sees through it too. And also, that kind of scene ends where Oz and Eve get it on, which is not something I thought I would be getting in this Penguin show where there's
I didn't
sexy penguin.
I didn't either, but I mean, look, it makes sense. It's set up that they were together. I don't know if they're in a relationship or if it's business or both.
Yeah.
Things get complicated, I guess. When I mean, I'm not even kidding. Things get complicated when you're in sex work. But I think it was definitely made clear to me in that episode that they were together. So I wasn't like, ooh, scandalized. But again, this adds a reality. Like, if I took my favorite Penguin, not just live action of all time, my favorite characterization of the Penguin is the one from the Batman games, the Arkham City Asylum games, right? Because he's like a British, like, he's like a Cockney British crime boss. Great character, feels real. I can't imagine him having sex. I don't want to. It just feels weird. This takes this character to such a real place where, like, I don't necessarily want to see this, but I understand this Penguin. No, but this Penguin feels like someone who naturally has sex, and I like that because, again, these are comic book characters, and we are giving them. I mean, I'm an atheist about to use this this terminology, but we're giving this character a soul, making it real, like in the sense where, like, even these small things, like, he has a limp because he's hurt. He has this weird relationship. Well, not weird, but he has this relationship with this woman that is sexual sometimes. And I don't know. Again, it's these nuances that add to the building of this character.
He's a real character.
That's it. He's 100%. This feels like a real. This could have been a character on The Sopranos.
Absolutely.
And The Sopranos is so grounded in the reality that this is trying to hit, because the reality of The Sopranos is so a little hyper real. It wasn't, we don't know how that is, but it's much more real than Batman. So the fact that this feels like you could plug this Batman villain into a real show about real people, I think that says everything you need to know about what they're doing in this.
Yeah. And then it kind of cuts to this whole scene too, where, well, one of the workers that are there, she talks to Vic, and she mentions a certain part of town, and she refers to it as a no man's land, which is what I was getting at earlier.
Yes, she does.
And that, for those who are maybe not aware, like, that is a famous Batman storyline here that I thought was named
in my opinion, it is top 5 best arcs of Batman comics. That No Man's Land comic, that's amazing stuff. And so they're name dropping that, and I'm kind of curious now, like, are we maybe going there in the future, Matt Reeves, somewhere?
Possibly. I'm starting to think so. I mean, it kind of seems like it's set up that way, right? Like what Gotham is laid out to be right now, right? Like it's in a lot of trouble with their flood and everything like that.
Right.
So,
and we do get another Riddler name drop, like, you know, and again, it's just a thing like, hey, do you have any more of this, whatever? And then, no, we're out. Well, why? Thank the Riddler. And I kind of thought that was cool because it's not important to the story, but it's world building. It's, hey, remember, we're in dire straits because that piece of shit terrorist from the first one, you know, from the movie. And I just think it's cool that they find very like not heavy-handed ways to remind us of that.
Yeah, agreed. So then we get a quick scene here where Sophia wakes up with cuts on her throat and stuff like that. Like, and it seems like she's kind of choking, and I believe she might be choking herself in her sleep. Like, those are her own fingernail cuts that are there.
Right.
So
yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, and that's just, I think, peppered throughout this episode regarding Sophia. There's a lot of that where we start to learn more about her character. So we know that she probably has some sort of thing in her sleep where she does some choking. And there's also name drops that when she's around people, they refer to, like, you hear whispering a lot and stuff like that. And, like, there's the persona of the hangman. Even at her brother's funeral, there's a lot of talk there. And, like, kind of protesters of, like, you know, hang the hangman and stuff like that. Like,
yeah, right.
What the public sees of her.
And you actually hear on, like, Gotham News or whatever, New York One, I think it is pretty much. But, like, calling her, like, well, she's practically a serial killer. Why did they let her out of Arkham? And we actually don't really know why she was in Arkham, and right, like, they haven't disclosed that yet.
Well, I mean, belief is that she killed 7 women, but we don't know why she's out. That's the thing we don't know.
We know that she killed 7 women, but that's all we know. Like, we don't, like, that could mean you're a serial killer. That could mean you accidentally got into a terrible accident with a bus.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there are different levels to that, and they haven't really delved into it. And I'm kind of curious, like, is it going to be one of those things where she does it in her sleep? Like, I don't. Do you know, is this based on a character in the comic book?
Well, it is definitely based on the Hangman from the Batman comics. So I'm trying to go ahead and bring up.
Okay. So they're probably leading there then.
Yes, that's what I would say here. So according to Sophia Falcone is the Hangman who was an unstable serial killer, who is, you know, the daughter of Carmine Falcone. So they are sticking pretty tight to.
Okay. That's awesome. That makes it even better. So yeah. So I'm now again, we know where this is going, right? Same thing I said with the Penguin. Now I know she's a serial killer. Clearly, that's what they're going for. But it's the why, because the character we have seen is clearly not a psychotic. She clearly has emotion and empathy. That's why she's so torn up about her brother. So clearly the murder has to have something to do with her psychosis or whatever. And now I'm even more excited for this character because I want to see what the hell fuels her.
Yeah. Okay, so we do get some of that. Then we also catch up with Oz, who is dealing with his mother's dementia getting worse. And there is a scene here where they go to visit her, and we find that Oz is paying off her landlord because he doesn't want to put her in a home to oversee her and things like that. And it's obvious her dementia is getting worse. But also, though, at the end of that scene, he also reassures her that he's not going to let her down. Like, so that's still his driving force behind his motivation to kind of be successful, I believe, is what his mother is, because he doesn't want to let his mother down, which I think is pretty important that's going to be peppered throughout this. But while she's dealing with the dementia, you know, she is laser focused on Oz and him being, like, successful, at least in her eyes. So I think that's pretty interesting here too. And then Oz also, by the way, tells him and Sophia have this conversation at Alberto's services, but he kind of tells her, like, this whole story about, like, you know, they didn't have a funeral for his brothers and stuff like that, and that him and his mother go dancing and everything like that. which I think gets picked up at the last scene in here.
Yeah.
But and that's what they figure was kind of more fun, right? Would be instead of having a service and being down, was to go dancing there. But he also mentions that he didn't get a chance to ask his mother much because he tells Sophia that she's dead, that she died a few years ago, which is why he's keeping her so isolated and protected, and probably does not want to put her in a home as well because he's trying to protect her and keep her safe from the Falcone crime family and everything like that.
Yeah, and I'm actually kind of curious if we're going to find out that maybe she was kind of like a Ma Barker type villain in her day with the Penguin boys. Oh no, with the Cobb boys, because they're not penguins, right?
No.
Because you do see flashes of that with her, right? Like, don't let me down. You take, she has these moments of clearly what's meant to be lucidity in her dementia, where she's really laying into Oz like, this is what you got to do. He talks about how his brothers were murdered, and they really, it wasn't just that, I think, maybe I'm misremembering this, but it wasn't just that they thought it would be better to dance, they couldn't throw a funeral.
Yes.
Right? There was something that so clearly something happened where they were killed and they couldn't honor them, so they have this ritual. So I'm kind of curious if that's where it's going, like where she is this overbearing Ma Barker type that has been kind of grooming him for this.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, I hope we do get more of her backstory too. I don't like it at some point, which wouldn't surprise me either.
I'm sure we're gonna get it. Yeah.
So also at one point, Sophia also goes ahead and hires this dirty cop to kind of like find out who the inside man is on this whole thing. And we find out, he's a drophead and stuff, and he brings her basically one of Maroney's guys, who was the one that we met in Blackgate earlier in the episode, and he's like hooked up to this IV, and this is the day of the services that are going on here. So she's like, listen, get him in the basement, let's question him, let's find out who the hell and what's what, and let's get to the bottom of this. And then Maroney's wife tells Oz, like, hey, listen, we want our guy back, and if you can't get him back, if they interrogate him, he's going to have a lot to say about you. So there's your motivation. So now Oz is back in his fucked up situation here again, where he's kind of got to like go and do this whole thing. And meanwhile, he has his own thing where he's trying to, let Luca know that Vidi's been banging his wife and has photos and has dirt on that, and tries to get Vic to implant it in his car. But he gets stopped before he can do that, and kind of like gets nervous on the spot, but finds a way to get out of it. But before he can plant it, and we'll get back to that in a minute. But once Oz knows that Vic failed, he's with Maroney's guy, and he's just trying to tell him like, hey, just say it was Vidi. Just say it was Vidi. Vidi will take the fall for the murder and everything. I can frame Vidi for everything, basically.
And then I'll get you out of here.
I get you out of here, and I get him off the board, which clears his ascension that's there as well. But then that goes sideways, and he has no choice but to kill Maroney's guy and stabs him with a fucking switchblade there in the basement.
And I knew this was coming, right? This was the logical conclusion to this. But I love this moment where he gets that call, because he's like, no, say it's Vidi. And he gets a call from Vic, and he's like, yeah, I couldn't do it. I failed. He's like, okay, no problem. All right. And he hangs up. He's like, okay, I'll say it's Vidi. He goes, oh, I'm sorry. Plans change. You got to adapt. He takes out the switchblade. And this is brutal. Like, he doesn't just stab him like TV stab him. He, like, stabs him, cuts him, puts the knife under. When he takes it out, it's covered in blood. And then he kind of, wipes it off and puts it back. And then, it just keeps going. And this is the moment I realized that Oz is a stone-cold psychopath.
Yes.
Stone-cold psychopath. Because this is just like, this is logically, what he did logically makes sense. It worked. But he had no problem doing that. And my God, again, Colin Farrell, just amazing. Just, like just because he's so empathetic, quote unquote, to this guy until he realizes he has to be the one to kill him, and it's off.
Yeah, and then he kind of gets cornered again, where they once they find the dead body, then they're like, all right, search everybody who was on that shipment that night and everything like that. And Oz is one of them there, and so is Vidi. And then he's got the knife on him, but he finds a way to start fucking with Vidi, where Sophia's right-hand guy comes over there, and he plants the knife on him and slips it on him. So then when he gets caught with the knife, it looks like he's the guy who killed him, who's the traitor, who's the inside guy. And he once again finds a way to weasel his way out of this whole thing. And Luca fucking shoots him, doesn't even hesitate.
No.
Just kills him, and that's it. And Sophia gets mad, saying, hey, listen, he was supposed to be for me. That's the guy who killed my fucking brother. And Luca's like, hey, listen, you're going to go away for a while and chill out and everything like that and cool off and stuff. And then she looks like she's going away for a second, but then they cut to a scene here where he's got to Oz is tasked with disposing of the bodies. And he gets Vic to help him out with this as his driver. And as he's got Vic digging this hole, he tells Vic to lay down in that hole. So he knows what it feels like when you don't adapt and you don't figure something out and you fucking choke on at the moment.
Yep.
Which is huge because this is him continuing to groom and teach this kid everything about anything that he knows. I found that very fascinating.
He's mentoring him.
Yep.
No, I love this part. I'm glad you brought it up because like what I loved about this moment is there is a similar moment in the last episode where Oz is going to kill this kid. You know, just look at the sunset. And the kid kind of charms his way out of it, and Oz kind of feels something. I never once thought that Oz was really going to kill this kid. Not once. Not in this moment, because this was a teachable moment to him. And I love that because you're right. And he tells the story. Oz tells this story, which makes it kind of clear why he has an affinity for Vic. When he talks about the first guy gave him a job, right? Which is one of Maroni's men or one of the Falcone's men. Mm-hmm. I forget his name, but he tells this whole beautiful monologue about how, I met him and he saw something in me and he offered me a job to be his driver, except I didn't have a license. I never drove before. And the weekend I took the job and I learned how to drive and drove around. Well, what happened? Well, a couple months later, Falcone whacked him because he, was informing on the feds, but he saw something in me and he trained me. And that's exactly what that whole monologue exists to make us understand why he's taking Vic under his wing. And what he did with Vic there, that was because he plans on being the next Falcone and he needs an Oz in his corner. And again, the character work, like if we just talk beat by beat, there's not many beats plot-wise in this episode, but the fucking character work is so juicy and so good.
I guess so. For him, it's coming full circle for Oz here, as well.
Absolutely. He was on the low man on the totem pole. Mm-hmm. We see him in the middle, and now he's fucking just working his way to the top, and he's planning and scheming, and he's playing families off each other, but he needs someone like him, like he was to this guy that Falcone killed, and eventually Falcone, who's going to be, okay, you're loyal to me because I took you in, because you owe something to me. And he made that clear. Falcone saw something in me, took me in, and continued training me. That's why he never made a move against him in the past. But that's done. The moves now are going to be made, and now he needs someone indebted to him who's not going to make a move on him when he is trying his ascension. Yeah. And it's just such brilliant parallels. The writing of this is amazing.
Yeah. So the episode pretty much wraps up, though, where Oz catches up with Sophia, and she's like, listen, that she really isn't planning on going anywhere. And she wants to kind of like start running shit and, get her brother's new drug and stuff like that, and they work together. And the last line of the episode is Oz saying, let's dance. Basically, let's go have some fun and let's go do this thing. And these two teaming up, these two unstable, essentially,
it's
psychopaths together.
It's crazy. It's gonna be so much fun.
These first 2 episodes have been great. I feel like shit's really gonna kick up now.
Yeah. No, and you know what's amazing to me is these first 2 episodes were so good. And you're right. I think things are going to get better. I can't even imagine.
How is that possible?
Anyone who has watched or listened to Granny's Peach Tea at all knows that sometimes I'm kind of a contrarian. Sometimes I don't like shit other people do. Other people does. Whatever. I don't oversell things. I don't just blow things. I don't just be like, hey, everything's great. When I say that I can't think of one negative for this.
No, I can't either.
I genuinely can't. This is brilliant. This is one of the best stories. Like, these first 2 episodes, kill it. It might go downhill after, but I don't see that happening.
No.
And it is on par to be one of the best Batman stories ever told, and it doesn't even have Batman in it.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff, man. It's exciting stuff, and this. I mean, I had high expectations going into this, and they've been exceeded so far in these first 2 episodes.
Yeah. And again, I just rewatched the Batman, as we talked about. I know you've seen it 100 times, and I love that you said this feels 100% part of that world, and it does.
Yeah,
it really does. Like, this is like, my God, why didn't they just hire Matt Reeves to fucking build the DCU? This man knows how to world build. Give him some time and money.
Well, it's also interesting too, and I think it speaks volumes that they also, even though when James Gunn and Peter Safran took over, they're like, oh, well, don't worry, Matt Reeves can do his own Batman thing, and that's it. Like, we're not even going to fuck with him. We're going to let him continue because he's got a lot of plans for his own.
It's Elseworlds.
Yeah, that's all.
Elseworlds, and it's great, and people love it, so let's do it.
Yeah, there's no reason to shut that down whatsoever, or even like forcefully integrate it into our thing.
Nope. It needs to be its own thing. But I just love how Matt Reeves or the people. I can't just say him. I love how the people behind this have been able to make a show that does not feel like a comic book show, that is clearly attached to a universe and a movie that is a comic book movie, but that also doesn't feel like a comic book movie. Like, there's just so many genre bending things happening here that I am blown away. Like, this is some of the best stuff we've covered.
I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree with you. All right. So that wraps it up for us this week. As always, if you joined us on the Facebook live stream, be sure to check out Granny's Peach Tea's Facebook group, because we got a lot of cool stuff that we drop on there that does not make the show. Also, check out Pop Culture Pros and popculturepros.com, because that's who we are presented by. And if you're checking us out on YouTube, subscribe to Pop Culture Pros, and wherever you found your audio-only podcast, subscribe to Pop Culture Pros. Jason and I will be back next week, and we have a lot to cover. We have Penguin episode 3, Agatha All Along episode 4. We will have the season premiere, season 4 and final season premiere of Superman and Lois, along with Joker Faradu, because that drops this week.
Yes.
So
yes, it does.
This is kind of like, talk about harkening back to the OG Granny's Peach Tea.
Granny's, where we get like we got a 4 hour
1,000 things, to talk about next week. So, woo! It's cool. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's exciting.
So, we got a lot of stuff. And look at that, 3 out of the 4 are DC. So then, who are labeling us the DC show?
Well, full circle, man. Full circle. But we started covering the DCEU, and now 172 episodes later, we're back covering DC.
We're back into it.
Tom is a flat circle.
And also, we got Sunday night, all right? Or did we confirm yet?
We have Sunday night. I'll be confirming like tomorrow, but Sunday night we're going to be doing a little PCP deep dive. We're going into your nightmares. We're going to be looking at Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, as well as the very first episode of Freddy's Nightmares, which is essentially that Ed told us last week on, or when we did last time we did PCP Deep Dive, was written by John Saxon and was considered to a possible option to be the third Freddy movie. I'm glad it wasn't, but very interesting things to talk about. So yeah, join us on Sunday for those the conversation around those two.
Yeah, that should be a hell of a lot of fun. I was having a blast doing that show as well. So, come check us out there as well. All right. Well, enjoy all the stuff this week, and we'll see you then. Peace.
Later.